In the burning heart of the Middle East, a seismic shift is unfolding, one that could redraw the maps of power, allegiance, and survival itself. Tehran, bruised by betrayal, cornered by isolation, and provoked by precision strikes, is now forging what many fear could be a doomsday alliance. Yes, Iran, once a geopolitical partner to China and Russia, is now watching those so-called allies quietly step back, retreating from the very chaos they helped spark. In that vacuum, a bold new coalition is rising, a Muslim bloc with its eyes set on Israel, and the implications earth-shaking. Just days ago, credible U.S. intelligence sources confirmed that Russia has drastically reduced military coordination with Iran, while China has frozen a major pipeline of oil and tech-based investments. Citing regional instability, the message to Tehran is clear: you're on your own. And for a regime that has built its foreign policy on multipolar alliances, this is nothing short of a strategic earthquake. But Iran isn't folding, it's pivoting. Behind closed doors in Ankara, Damascus, and even in whispers out of Islamabad, Iran is stitching together a Muslim coalition, one that frames Israel not just as a state, but as the symbol of Western encroachment. Fueled by rage, religion, and revenge, this coalition's rhetoric has escalated from resistance to retaliation. And here's the twist. Iran's Quds force is already coordinating with select factions in Lebanon, Yemen, and Iraq to test new fronts, military, digital, and political against Israeli interests. In Gaza, Hamas has reportedly received covert green lights to escalate operations, while in the Red Sea, Houthi proxies have intensified maritime harassment, indirectly threatening Israeli trade routes. This is not coincidence, it's coordination. Now, let's pause for a moment and consider this. Why now? Because with Russia consumed in Ukraine and China entangled in economic slowdowns and global scrutiny, Tehran sees a narrow window of opportunity, a chance to reassert regional dominance without interference from its former patrons. This is Iran's boldest move yet, driven by desperation but executed with strategy. America's watchful eye, Iran's gamble, and the U.S. response. In the Middle East, at the heart of Iran's aggressive regional maneuvering, lies a bold and calculated gamble that the United States will not intervene directly. In Tehran's view, Washington is war-weary, geopolitically distracted, and diplomatically disengaging from the Middle East. The Biden administration's pivot to Asia and its measured retreat from long-standing Middle Eastern entanglements, from Afghanistan to scaled-down presence in Iraq and Syria, have sent signals to adversaries that the U.S. appetite for direct confrontation in the region is waning. For Iran, this perceived vacuum offers a unique opportunity. If America is less likely to project force, Tehran is free to act more boldly. This thinking is not rooted in fantasy, it is built on precedent. The 2021 U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan, the restrained response to Houthi attacks on Saudi oil infrastructure, and the gradual redefinition of American military doctrine in the region all contribute to an image of a superpower pulling back. Tehran's strategic planners are not blind. They understand that Washington still maintains partnerships and influence, but they believe that the cost-benefit analysis for the U.S. now leans heavily toward caution. With domestic pressures mounting, an election year approaching, and Washington's primary foreign policy focus shifting to countering China and the Indo-Pacific, Iran is betting that it can build and lead a bold new anti-Israel Muslim bloc with minimal risk of American military retaliation. But this is where Iran may have miscalculated. The Pentagon has not stayed idle. In a swift and pointed response to Iran's actions and growing alliances across the region, the U.S. has redeployed the U.S. Gerald R. Ford Carrier Strike Group to the Eastern Mediterranean, a highly symbolic and strategic move. This naval behemoth represents more than just firepower. It's a floating declaration of presence, power, and protection. Its very positioning is a message to Tehran. You may believe we're retreating, but we haven't taken our eyes off you. This carrier group is not alone. U.S. military surveillance flights over the Persian Gulf have increased. Sending-off forces in Qatar and Jordan have been placed on elevated readiness levels. In Israel, joint defense drills have been conducted discreetly but intensively, designed to simulate multi-front conflict and missile defense coordination. Behind the scenes, military planners are preparing for contingencies, whether it be proxy conflicts through Hezbollah and Hamas or direct confrontation with Iranian assets. And now, the world has heard it straight from the highest office in America. Just hours ago, President Joe Biden stood beside Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu during a high-stakes press conference. His words were clear, sharp, and loaded with intent. The United States will not allow Israel to fall into regional isolation. We stand shoulder to shoulder, as we always have. That statement wasn't just political theater. It was backed by policy and real-time logistics. The president confirmed the approval of a new military aid package to Israel, including advanced munitions, surveillance technology, and tactical support for air defense systems. One of the most urgent parts of the package, the expedited resupply of the Iron Dome, Israel's critical missile defense shield, which has seen increased deployments amid rising threats from Hezbollah and Gaza. Iron Dome batteries are being reinforced in the north and south of Israel, indicating that U.S. and Israeli intelligence believe the threats aren't theoretical, they're imminent. This isn't a defensive posture, this is preemptive readiness. These developments illustrate that while Washington may be reluctant to start new wars, it will not hesitate to deter one. And perhaps even more telling is the fact that these moves have occurred quietly but swiftly, without excessive public buildup or congressional delays. This kind of rapid response reflects a doctrine of low-profile escalation readiness, something the Pentagon has perfected since the post-Iraq and post-Afghanistan recalibration. In addition to military preparedness, diplomatic and cyber assets are also being deployed. The U.S. State Department is engaging Gulf nations, trying to weaken Iran's bid for a unified Muslim front by drawing Sunni-led countries like Saudi Arabia and Egypt back into dialogue with Israel. Behind closed doors, American diplomats are urging regional players to see Iran's actions not as a fight for Palestine, but as a ploy for dominance, a power play by a regime increasingly isolated by both East and West. And then there's the cyber front. U.S. Cyber Command has begun defensive hardening of Israeli critical infrastructure, particularly in energy, transportation, and water sectors, areas Iran has targeted before. This cyber shield, largely invisible to the public, is a key part of the U.S.-Israel strategic partnership, underscoring that modern warfare isn't just fought with bombs, but with bites. All of this sends one unified message to Tehran. You may feel abandoned by Moscow and Beijing, but Washington has not walked away. While the U.S. may not put boots on the ground in Tehran or Damascus, its strategic commitment to Israel remains firm, flexible, and formidable. Iran thought the U.S. wouldn't respond, but the aircraft carrier cutting through the waters of the Mediterranean, the surge of American cyber defense assets, the president's words, and the Iron Dome resupply say otherwise. This is no longer just about Tehran and Tel Aviv. It's about whether America still casts its long shadow over the world's most volatile region. And the answer, as of today, is a resounding yes. Unity of the Crescent. Iran's strategic encirclement of Israel. But what's even more alarming, Iranian state media has started floating the phrase, unity of the Crescent, a term that sounds symbolic on the surface, but holds deeply strategic and dangerous implications underneath. This phrase isn't just political rhetoric, it's a reflection of a long-standing Iranian vision to unify Shia majority or Shia-aligned territories and militias from Tehran to Beirut, forming an unbroken arc of influence aimed directly at surrounding and pressuring the state of Israel from all directions. This concept, which some military analysts now call the Shia Crescent 2.0, is not new. But what's changed in recent months is Iran's urgency and the cohesion of its proxies. With diplomatic backing from former allies like Russia and China slipping away, Tehran has accelerated efforts to reinforce this crescent, not just as a symbolic shield of ideology, but as a real and actionable network of armed influence. Let's understand the geography and the threat embedded in this arc. Starting from Iran itself, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRG, remains the central nervous system of this strategy. The elite Quds Force acts as the overseas arm of the IRGC, responsible for training, funding, and directing militias beyond Iran's borders. Iran's role here is not merely to suggest coordination, it is to control it, operate it, and use it as leverage against both Israel and the West. To Iran's west lies Iraq, a critical piece of the crescent. The fall of Saddam Hussein and the aftermath of the U.S. invasion opened the gates for Iran to embed itself into Iraq's military and political fabric. Today, Iran-backed militias such as Kata'ib Hezbollah, Harakat al-Nujaba, and the broader popular mobilization forces, PMF, operate with considerable autonomy and often act on Iranian orders, not Baghdad's. These groups not only control parts of Iraq's territory, but also possess missile capabilities, logistical routes, and deep ideological loyalty to Tehran. Next in line is Syria, a broken nation still recovering from years of brutal civil war. Iran has exploited Syria's instability, embedding thousands of Quds Force advisors and supplying Hezbollah and other pro-Iranian militias with weaponry via land routes. These land bridges allow seamless transfer of arms and fighters across Iraq and Syria. The Assad regime's dependence on Iran for survival has effectively made Damascus an operational outpost of Tehran. Israeli intelligence has repeatedly warned of Iranian efforts to establish permanent military bases in Syria, complete with drone factories, missile depots, and surveillance outposts along the Golan Heights. From Syria, the crescent curves into Lebanon, where the most potent Iranian proxy resides, Hezbollah. With a sophisticated arsenal exceeding 150,000 rockets, many of them precision-guided, Hezbollah poses the most immediate threat to Israel's northern front. Backed by Iranian funds, weapons, and ideology, Hezbollah has transformed southern Lebanon into a fortified zone, one that can be activated with a single command from Tehran. Hassan Nasrallah, Hezbollah's leader, has openly declared that any future war with Israel will be without limits, with recent reports showing increased coordination between Hezbollah and Iran's military leadership. The potential for a large-scale northern assault cannot be underestimated. But the threat doesn't end in the north. Swinging down to the south, Gaza and the West Bank have also seen a resurgence in Iranian influence. Groups like Palestinian Islamic Jihad, PIJ, are already firmly in Iran's orbit, while factions within Hamas have received both funding and weapons training from the RGC. The recent uptick in rocket fire from Gaza into southern Israel, combined with attempted infiltration operations, suggests a more coordinated regional posture, one that aligns with the broader unity of the Crescent framework. And further south still, the arc extends into Yemen, where the Houthis, Iran's proxy in the Arabian Peninsula, have successfully attacked Israeli-linked commercial ships in the Red Sea and expressed their alignment with Iranian regional goals. Though physically distant, the Houthis play a psychological and strategic role in Iran's plan. They serve as a signal that Iranian reach is not confined to land borders. It extends to maritime routes and vital choke points as well. When viewed together, these elements paint a stark picture. Iran is not merely surrounding Israel with ideology, it is surrounding it with rockets, drones, militias, and cyber capabilities. From Lebanon to Syria, Iraq to Gaza, and even as far as Yemen, this crescent forms a noose, a multi-front threat designed to paralyze Israel's military, overwhelm its defenses, and pressure its political allies into concessions. And with the United States attempting to refocus its geopolitical attention elsewhere, and with global powers like Russia and China more concerned about their own interest in regional stability, Iran feels emboldened. The Islamic Republic sees this as the perfect moment to activate long sleeping fronts, test Israel's red lines, and send a message to the Arab world that the resistance axis is alive, united, and advancing. The phrase, unity of the Crescent, may seem abstract, but its reality is terrifyingly concrete. It's a strategic encirclement, meticulously planned, deeply rooted in ideological warfare, and increasingly visible in kinetic operations across the region. If this alliance solidifies even further, Israel could soon find itself under siege from all sides, north, south, east, and even at sea. And in such a scenario, containment won't be enough. Deterrence will be tested. And the risk of a regional war, unlike anything seen in decades, will become all too real. What we are witnessing isn't just a diplomatic reshuffling. This is a strategic metamorphosis. Iran, abandoned by its eastern allies, is no longer playing by the old rules. With an emerging Muslim bloc at its side, it's charging into uncharted waters, determined, defiant, and dangerously unpredictable. For Israel, this could mean a future filled with sharper threats and fewer buffers. For the U.S., it's a test of resolve. Can Washington prevent another Middle Eastern eruption? Or will it be drawn back into a vortex it tried so hard to escape? The next few months will determine everything. Will this new Muslim alliance remain rhetoric, or will it ignite a regional war the world isn't ready for? One thing is certain, the power balance in the Middle East is tilting, and the world is holding its breath. Stay informed, stay aware, because what happens in the Middle East never stays in the Middle East.